You peel back the wrapper of a vanilla ice cream bar and take the first bite. Cold, smooth, almost flavorless, until the aroma arrives. Not a loud sweetness, but something more delicate. A faint floral note, the creamy richness of the ice cream, and a gentle warm hint, like polished wood. You've probably tasted vanilla in countless foods. But have you ever stopped to ask, what is vanilla, really? And how do you create a flavor like this? Here's a small reveal. Real vanilla isn't simple at all. It's one of the most complex, labor-intensive flavors in the kitchen, and it starts with something you wouldn't expect. Let's get into it right here on Secrets of Simple Things. Vanilla isn't a bean, it's an orchid. If you imagined vanilla as something that grows on a sturdy spice tree, reset the picture. Vanilla comes from a tropical orchid, yes, an orchid the kind people treat like a fragile luxury on a windowsill. The main species behind most commercial vanilla is Vanilla planifolia, a climbing vine that wraps itself around trees in warm, humid forests. It doesn't stand upright like a crop in neat rows. It climbs. It leans. It depends. And the famous vanilla bean isn't technically a bean. It's a fruit pod, a long capsule packed with tiny seeds. We call it a bean because it looks like one. But its story isn't a simple harvest story. It's a transformation story. And that transformation is forced to begin inside a very small window. The one-day flower. Vanilla doesn't give you a long season of chances. It gives you a day. A vanilla flower blooms for a single day. It opens in the morning and closes by night. If it isn't pollinated during that short window, it withers and falls off, and that potential pod never exists. That fact alone explains a lot. Vanilla isn't just grown, it's caught like a moment you can miss. In its native home Mexico and parts of Central America, vanilla evolved with specific natural pollinators. But when vanilla cultivation spread to places like Madagascar, Indonesia, and Tahiti, the plant traveled without its original helpers. The flowers still opened, the timer still started. But nature didn't show up to finish the job. So humans did. The manual step nobody sees. Today, nearly all commercial vanilla is pollinated by hand. Workers go flower by flower with a small stick or needle. Inside the blossom is a thin membrane that separates the male and female parts. The worker gently lifts that membrane and presses the parts together. Done right, it takes a few seconds. Done wrong, the flower is wasted. And because the flower's window is measured in hours, not days, this isn't leisurely work. It's morning work. It's deadline work. One person can pollinate thousands of flowers in a morning, but that number can make it sound automated. It isn't. Every future pod begins as a tiny, manual decision. If vanilla feels expensive, it's because the first step is always a human hand racing a clock. But even after you do all that, you still don't have vanilla. Not the smell you know anyway. The green pod that smells like nothing. After successful pollination, the flower develops into a long green pod, what people call a vanilla bean. At this stage, it's basically a bland fruit capsule. If you split a freshly harvested pod open, you won't get the smell of ice cream. You'll barely get much of anything. That's the surprise most people never hear. The flavor you associate with vanilla doesn't exist yet. So if you're wondering why real vanilla costs so much, this is the turning point. Because what you're paying for isn't harvested aroma. It's aroma that has to be built after harvest on purpose. And building it takes a choreography of heat, moisture, sun, and time. Heat, sweat, Sunday time. To turn that nearly scentless green pod into the dark, fragrant vanilla you recognize, producers cure it. Curing isn't a single step. It's a controlled transformation that can take months. First comes heat. The pods are briefly warmed, sometimes dipped in hot water, sometimes laid in the sun to stop the plant's growth and start chemical change. Then comes sweating. The warm pods are wrapped in blankets or placed in insulated boxes to hold heat and moisture. Enzymes inside the pod begin breaking down compounds and building new ones. The pod is, in a sense, converting itself quietly into flavor. After that comes drying. The pods are laid out in the sun during the day and brought indoors at night. Over time, they shrink, darken, and wrinkle. It's a daily rhythm. Sun out, pods out. Night arrives, pods protected. This isn't just dehydration. It's concentration and stabilization, making the flavor last instead of flashing and fading. Finally, the pods are aged in closed boxes so the aroma deepens and rounds out. By the end, a green, almost anonymous fruit becomes a flexible, aromatic vanilla pod that smells like dessert before it ever touches sugar. Now we can name the molecule people love to mention. But we have to be careful not to stop there. One molecule versus a symphony. If you've heard anything scientific about vanilla, you've probably heard the name vanillin, the primary compound most responsible for vanilla's signature smell. But here's the catch. Vanillin is not the whole story. Natural vanilla contains hundreds of aroma compounds. Some read as floral, some as fruity, some as smoky or creamy. Some carry a faint spice note you don't consciously label, but you feel as warmth in the background. That complexity is why real vanilla extract tastes richer and more dimensional than vanilla flavor. It's the difference between hearing a single note and hearing a chord. Artificial vanilla can imitate the headline. Real vanilla carries the full paragraph. And once industry realized the headline was enough for most products, the shortcut became inevitable. The shortcut, where vanilla flavor comes from. Because vanillin is such a strong signal, it can be produced without orchids. Artificial vanilla is typically made using synthetic vanillin. Depending on the method, it can be made from petrochemicals or from industrial plant materials like lignin roots that deliver the main note fast, cheap, and consistent. And to be clear, that shortcut isn't automatically bad. It's stable, it's affordable. It keeps mass-produced foods tasting familiar year-round. But it is a shortcut. It gives you the loudest part of vanilla while skipping the quieter compounds that make real vanilla feel alive, especially in simple foods like custard, whipped cream, or plain ice cream, where there's nowhere for vanilla to hide. So if the shortcut is cheaper and consistent, why does real vanilla swing so wildly in price? Because vanilla isn't priced like a flavor, it's priced like a timeline under risk. Why real vanilla gets expensive? Vanilla is often listed as the second most expensive spice in the world after saffron, and the reasons make sense once you see the full chain. Labor. Nearly every flower is pollinated by hand. Time. Pods take months to grow, and curing takes months more. Risk. Vanilla is sensitive to weather. Cyclones, droughts, and shifting climate patterns can reduce harvests dramatically. Madagascar, which supplies a large portion of the world's vanilla, has seen major price swings when storms damage crops. And because vanilla is valuable, it can be stolen before its fully mature pods taken early, before the farmer is ready, because the market reward is so high. Some farmers mark pods or track batches to prove ownership and deter theft. So when you buy a small bottle of pure vanilla extract, you aren't paying for a basic flavor. You're paying for a year of attention, plus the uncertainty hanging over every harvest. Which brings us to a weird cultural outcome. If vanilla is this fragile and complicated, why did vanilla become shorthand for boring? How vanilla became boring. Because in modern desserts, vanilla is everywhere. It became the default base, the ice cream flavor you choose when you don't want to choose, the cake that shows up at every birthday, the frosting that sits under every decoration. It's the safe option on a menu so common it starts to disappear. Historically, vanilla was rare and prized. It flavored royal drinks and exotic desserts. It carried the aura of something imported and precious, something you didn't waste. But industrial food production changed the meaning. Once synthetic vanilla became widely available, vanilla stopped signaling rarity and started signaling neutrality. The flavor didn't become ordinary, our relationship to it did. And that's exactly why people buy the wrong bottle. They assume it's all the same. So, let's make it practical. The 5. Second vanilla check. Next time you're staring at a shelf of vanilla bottles, do this. In 5 seconds, look for 2 words. Vanilla extract. If the label says pure vanilla extract, you're in the real vanilla lane. If it says imitation, vanillin, or vanilla flavor, you're in the shortcut lane. Both lanes can be useful just in different moments. If vanilla is the star ice cream, custard, whipped cream, simple cakes, pure extract gives you that layered depth. If the recipe has loud flavors, dark chocolate, strong spices, heavy fruit imitation can do the job without wasting the expensive stuff. And if you're buying paste or beans, don't rely on vibes, rely on the label. Those black specks you sometimes see can be a clue, but they aren't proof by themselves. The label is the proof. Scan the ingredient list for clarity. You want vanilla listed as vanilla beans, extract, or both, without the label leaning on vague flavor language. That's it. 5 seconds. 2 words. 1 clean decision. The default flavor that takes a year. Now go back to that vanilla ice cream bar. That plain taste you thought you knew is actually the end of a long chain. An orchid vine climbing in humid air, a flower that opens for one day, a human hand racing a clock, a green pod that smells like nothing, and months of heat, sweat, sun, and time that build a scent from scratch. Vanilla only became basic because the world learned how to copy the headline and print it everywhere. The original is still quietly intricate, so familiar we stop noticing how much work it contains. And if you like this kind of story, where one small, everyday detail opens into a bigger timeline, subscribe to Secrets of Simple Things. We upload more of these simple on the surface, complicated underneath journeys, and you won't want to miss the next one.